11 o'clock. We'll call the November, December meeting of the Environmental Commission to order. Is the recording going? Okay. We need roll call first.
Chair Linda Hall.
Yep. First.
Chair Linda Hall.
Yep.
Vice Chair James Isla.
Here.
Secretary Jamie Krug, excuse. Alderman John Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Tom Nemick, not present. Tom Nemick, not present. Commissioner Sherman, present.
All right. Next we'll do pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next we'll do citizens' comment period. Are there any citizens here wishing to make a comment? Please identify yourself.
Sure. Dana Gint, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane in Franklin. I'm just here to discuss a couple issues that I have concerns with regarding the public comment been allowed for this massive project that impacts all citizens in the city of Franklin. The Planning Commission does not allow public comment, and I'm glad that I noticed that it was on the meeting tonight, but that it's regarding natural resources primarily, that it can be related to other concerns. I live near the Rock Sports Complex. I live a half mile from the Rock Sports Complex. I can hear word for word what is stated in the stadium by the announcer, the music, and things like that. Alderman John Nelson has been in our neighborhood and it stated in front of the neighborhoods that he can hear it at the golf course when he was golfing one day. So my concern is that clearly that is impacting the entire environment around this stadium and in the entertainment district. It's impacting the parks, the wildlife, and the people. And I was asking that the UDO analysis and a requirement for design standards for outdoor speaker systems. Right now, there is no standard related to outdoor speaker systems, and so there's no review of that process. And I've asked, where are the drawings for the stadium speaker system? They say they don't have them because they weren't required. Well, a halfway intelligent person that is putting a stadium in a residential, well, it used to be a park, abutting residential neighborhoods, we should certainly find out what kind of speaker system and design and engineering is involved in trying to protect the neighborhood. And as far as natural resources, there were 23 acres of natural lock-in. And according to your section 15.4-103, mitigation, there's supposed to be 1.25 acres of woodland replaced for each acre removed. Clearly, if there's 22 acres plus wetlands removed from that property, I don't know where those 22 acres were replanted. Well, it'd have to be 1.25 times. It's concerning to me that that's not being followed either. I know there's been lots of concerns about the noise, but I think it extends beyond just the noise that it impacts the entire environment. And I'd really appreciate if a part of the UDO that you guys put in there that design standards need to be followed for some sort of outdoor, and the ordinances need to be followed for noise protection. The Milwaukee County contract, which is similar to what the planning manager report indicated on November 23rd, 2020, is that the receiving district property line is what the decibel level should be. City of Franklin are at 50 decibels. The neighborhood next to the Rock Sports Complex is at 79 decibels. That is 15 decibels above all the industrial areas, manufacturing, and even the airport overlay. That is completely unacceptable, and I don't know what allows that to continue when even Mayor Olson has put together letters in 2020 that it's a nuisance and has testified in meetings that their speakers pointed out from the stadium at residential neighborhoods that are a problem. That's over 300 events broadcasting noise into our neighborhood. That's over. that are disrupting my family from sleeping, enjoying my yard. I mean, I can tell you, I used to have deer, turkeys, owls in my yard every day. There's nothing. It's totally destructive to the whole environment. It's near Mangan Woods. So I believe that the property line to make a quiet, what is it called? It's like a quiet sensitive area or something like that, a noise sensitive area. It's in the ordinance 15-3.1107. So I think that that property line should be designated by the environmental committee that is a noise sensitive boundary to address this noise issue, because obviously 9 years of discussing this and being ignored by hundreds of people have showed up. Hundreds of complaints have been filed at the city. We have been ignored, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. So I'm asking you to please help us. If this was your family, what would you do after 9 years? Seriously, not being able to sleep. Family, what would you do after 9 years? Seriously, not being able to sleep. Children have even come to public meetings saying, can you please turn it down? I can't sleep at night. Events go till 10:30 at night. They're talking about allowing as many fireworks as they want, as long as it's not during the weekday. Are you kidding me? There's 9 fireworks already this year. And one of them was it's not during the weekday. Are you kidding me? There's 9 fireworks already this year. And one of them was unpermitted. There's nearly a dozen events that are unpermitted this year. The city does nothing for this project. So I'm just asking that you please have some empathy for this neighborhood and please do something to protect us. Thank you. Empathy for this neighborhood and please do something to protect us. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, we'll
I'm
close.
sorry, I did not write down the name fully.
Dana Gint. Do you need me to spell? Last name is Gindt.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
We'll close the comment period at 7:08. Next, we'll do approval of minutes from our August meeting.
Move to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, then we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone? And then we will jump ahead to new business. Item E, City of Franklin participation in regional solar group buy program. We've got Marty Monti from Midwest Renewable Energy Association to give a presentation.
Do you want us to, Sure, we will, or do you want to put on there? Whichever, you can draw whichever is more comfortable. I'll just sit here. I'm sure you can hear me all right, but is the mic picking? Yes, is the mic picking it up? All right. Well, thank you for having me today. Thank you for having me today. Again, my name is Marta Monti, and I'm with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. I live in West Dallas, but we are based in Custer, Wisconsin, which is up right around Stevens Point. But I'm here today to talk to you about our Grow Solar programs. And how you can, how we'd like to help bring solar to Franklin. So just a little bit more about who the MREA is. We're a nonprofit educational organization based out of Custer, Wisconsin. We've been around since 1990, and our mission is to promote renewable energy through education and demonstration. So renewable energy, energy efficiency, and sustainable living. All of those are encompassed in what we do. So we have a number of programs. All of those are encompassed in what we do. So we have a number of programs ranging from workforce development and training of renewable energy professionals in solar PV and small wind. And we also host an annual energy fair, which is a lot of fun. But so our philosophy is the more solar, the better. So our is the more solar, the better. And education is always the first step to getting there. And we find that when education and outreach is paired with a program like our Grow Solar programs, we get a lot more adoption in the community. And also we find that whether in year 1 or year 5, we're planting that seed and helping people move forward. So I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but just a little quick rundown of what I want to talk about. Why solar, why now, and why it's important, and what opportunities are there for the city since the passage, and how it works, and what the city's role would be in that, and just a little bit more about the commitments. Okay, so a little bit more about why solar and why now. There are a lot of opportunities with the way that people purchase their electricity. First, there are unpredictable rate increases, the price of solar. Secondly, we like to think that when you're paying your monthly utility bill, you're not building your own equity. We own our homes, we own our cars, but we don't necessarily own our electricity. In a way, we're renting from the utility. And the third is the pollution factor. Fossil fuels still produce a majority of our electricity in the state. Effects of rate hikes when you purchase your solar system. You're paying for everything up front for the next 20 to 25 years. You are building equity because you're taking ownership of your electricity production instead of renting from the utility. And then your power, of course, is clean. What would be produced using fossil fuels. And next, some communities want to lead their regions in encouraging residents and businesses to go solar, and this is kind of where we come in. There are lots of studies out there. One from the Brookings Institute says that slightly less than half of large U.S. cities have established. A lot of municipalities, or some municipalities, focus on their own footprints as an entity, and others include the broader community, their residents. And again, this is where we come in. So our Solar Group Buy programs offer a potential avenue for communities to achieve their sustainability goals and support point you achieve, if that's something you're interested in as well. And we think it's an all-around easy fit for your community. And then finally, the IRA legislation really opens the door to numerous opportunities for residents. So I'd like to just take 1 second to just introduce it. If you don't know much about it yet, it's the largest clean energy investment America has made, with strategic incentives to make the transition to clean energy and a decarbonized life easy and financially smart. It offers home energy offerings to include upfront discounts, tax rebates, and low-cost financing. And together provides a substantial pot of money for every household to electrify everything they rely on, from the cars they drive, how they get their power, how they heat their air and water, regardless of income level. One way to think about the IRA is like it's a financing tool to help you convert your household to run fully on electricity energy. It is good. The legislation is open for the next 10 years, so people can spread this out over time to take advantage of the incentives that are out there. Another key part in non-taxable entities to fully take advantage of the 30% tax credit. Municipal buildings, churches, synagogues, mosques, all these entities can benefit from solar and the tax rebates that couldn't quite time for communities to be forward-thinking and take the lead and become champions of this renewable energy boom that is coming to the region over the next decade. So, hopefully I got you a little bit excited about the prospects of solar and renewable energy in the community. So now I'd like to introduce our Grow Solar. A Grow Solar program brings homeowners and small business owners together as a community to purchase solar at a reduced price. Our Solar Group Buys help individuals overcome financial and logistical barriers of going solar by coupling it with education and the opportunity to go solar by coupling it with education and the opportunity to go solar. So let me break that down just a little bit more. Our programs are based off of an NREL, National Renewable Energy Lab solarized model. First started in 2009 in Portland, and we picked up the idea 2009 in Portland, and we picked up the idea in 2013, and we actually started in River West in just a couple of neighborhood blocks, and then it grew to a program in Milwaukee and Tosa, and we've run 5 programs since 2013, and we've run 5 programs since 2013, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but let me break down what a group buy is. There's 5 key components of it. First is that we have a competitively selected installer. We release an RFP, and this process is led by the MREA, and this process is led by the MREA with the help of our local advisory committee, and it's something I'll talk about a little bit more in the future, but we hope that would be someone, a representative from your community. We're the experts at the MREA. We help facilitate and guide the RFP process, but we look for guidance and input from our advisory committee. And this allows us to get a high quality solar installer for a competitive price. In the RFP, it's built in that the price is lower than the market price that installer typically charges. So not necessarily the lowest price out there, but lower, again, what they typically charge. And we find that it's between 7 and 11% lower than their market prices. So we facilitate these programs, but the success is really contingent upon community-led support, outreach, and involvement. So we rely heavily on our program partners and community members to help get the word out. And that includes establishing mutually beneficial partnerships with municipalities. The group buy is a limited time offering. We find that putting a deadline on programs like this incentivizes participation. So interested parties must sign a contract before our deadline to get the program pricing and the rebates, which I'll talk about in a minute. And the public-facing part of our programs usually lasts for including time for people to make a decision. Fourth, we have a really strong customer education and outreach component. As I said, education is key, and that's the first part. So we host solar power hours throughout the program that covers the basics of solar, applications of solar, what to look for in a good installer. And then we have a Q&A portion, and our selected installer is usually there to answer technical questions for customers. And we find that delivering all of this information up front in this format drives the soft cost down. Of solar installations for the installers, so marketing, customer acquisition, customer education, and then the attendees get all of this information up front, something that would really take a couple weeks to do research on, and we can have experts on hand to answer their questions. And we conduct surveys after all of our programs, and we find that community members say it's really important that the information comes from a third-party nonprofit organization like the MREA rather than a for-profit installer. And then lastly, our community outreach and group purchase creates an economy of scale, which lowers the price for everyone. And I'll talk about that and how the rebates work. Everyone wins. We select a local installer, so the local installer is getting business. The community members get a low-cost solar, and the community benefits by moving closer towards its sustainability goals. We have some guiding principles that help adopt solar when their neighbors adopt solar, and someone in close proximity goes solar. So that's why we rely on word of mouth and referrals, really. In the industry, referrals are the #1 way that contractors get business, and it's the same for us as well. Second, the presence of affinity groups lead to more installations in a given area. That's why we really emphasize our local partnerships. And third, discounts with the deadline help a greater number of people decide that now is the time to go solar. So, bringing it all together and talking about Grow Solar Greater Milwaukee, these are some idea of who has partnered with us in the past. I'll mention now that supportive municipalities carry no liability to participate and be program partners, and there are a number of ways to get involved. 64 homes went solar. Over 340 people were educated, and over 420 kilowatts of solar were added. And that was a pretty good year considering it was right in the midst of the pandemic. So overall, as I said, we started these programs in 6 different states in the Midwest. We've, as you can see, educated over 1,300 people, over $53 million of local investment in clean energy. Over 19 megawatts of solar have been installed, and then on the left there you can see our Greater Milwaukee result. 281 properties have gone solar, and since 2017, $2.6 million in local investment. So the one thing that I've danced around a little bit is the structure of our collective activism, and the linchpin in our programs is this economies of selective activism, and the linchpin in our programs is this economies of scale. The more people who participate with us, the lower the price is for everyone. So the price starts low, base price low, and we set several milestones that the advisory committee helps us set while we're putting together our RFP. We like to set achievable goals. Our last goal is our last benchmark is our reach goal, but we usually hit it. So these milestones are often at 50, 150, 250 kilowatts and so on. And on average, kilowatts and so on. And on average, that price break when the program is signed contracts is around 7 contracts to hit 50 kilowatts, 21 to hit 150, about 35 to hit 250, and so on. So the pricing scheme really incentivizes participants to tell them. So the pricing scheme really incentivizes participants to tell their friends and everyone, friends and neighbors to go solar. Okay, so program timeline. We've kind of got it broken down in 2 phases. So as I said, we're phase 1 is planning phase, what we're in right now. Phase 1 is planning phase, what we're in right now. And phase 2 is execution. It generally takes us about 2 months to get the program ready. In that time, we build our community support, build our advisory committee, put out the RFP, and start scheduling. And then phase 2 is really just when we hit the ground running. Once our installer is selected, we begin our solar power hour outreach sessions, work on promotion, and as soon as people sign contracts, the solar installations begin. So here's another way that you can kind of look at it. We're in December now, but as I said, we are in the program setup phase. We would like to issue the RFP in early January, and it's usually out for about 3 weeks. And sessions and community outreach. Another thing that you can note here is the sections in yellow that call out the interactions between the installer and the customer. This illustrates how, at this point in the program, the partners are kind of out of the picture, so to speak, other than provide support and assistance to the customers, but the agreement ultimately is between the customer and the installer. So let's talk about how you would come in. So each type of partner, we ask for a few, and some of it overlaps, but so we've got the lead organization, which is the MREA, jurisdictional partners, community partners, and our solar installer. So the MREA, we manage the website, we convene weekly meetings, and facilitate these meetings. We build and manage the website, social media. We hold the contract with the installer for the program, and we provide organizational tools to all of our partners, including tracking documents and any media, blurbs for newsletters or social media. We try to make it easy for you to just kind of take the information and turn it around. And then jurisdictions can be involved in a number of different ways, as I said with the advisory committee. But there's also an opportunity for you to be involved in our working group. As I said, we meet weekly to keep tabs on the installer and to monitor the program. So we offer that transparent with our program. Oftentimes, partners like to be kept in the loop and get a monthly check-in rather than coming to a weekly meeting, and that's okay. So our biggest ask, really, with our jurisdictional partners is to be a program partner. The biggest part, again, is helping us get the word out and helping us with our promotion. Because when folks see our posters with your city logo on it and our other program partners on it, it helps us build credibility and legitimacy. They see this, as something more meaningful, and that's come through in the surveys that I've mentioned. So just to give you an idea of what promotion has looked like in the past, I've mentioned newsletters, social media. We table at farmers markets in the summer that we can come to and help get the word out. We provide posters, handbills, flyers, and if you could let us know where we can put some up around town, things like that. And if you have any connections with local media, connect with cities' communications departments, and they help get us on their promotion schedule. So, as I said, what does it look like for your municipality to get involved? Again, I said we require no contracts, no city run to you. Our funding comes from an admin fee that the installer pays us, so there's no financial burden to your city. And also, as I said in the beginning, the MREA, we can provide more than just this program. We can provide something that you'd like to explore, assistance with municipal projects, and also bringing workforce development trainings to the area. So, as I said, we like to think that we make it easy for municipalities to participate in our programs. So how can you get involved in our programs? You can commit to being a partner with us. Allow us to use your logo on our promotional materials. Help us schedule our solar power hours. We've been doing a hybrid version of in-person and virtual since COVID. Helping us find locations in your city will be helpful, and then dedicating some amount of staff time either to the advisory committee, to the weekly working group, or just to help with general communications. And that is it. So if you have any questions, I've got some handouts that basically recaps everything that I said, because I know I kind of went through it right now.
Okay. Doreen Nelson?
Hi, thank you for coming here tonight. Very informative. I understand that's quite the trend, and there are people residentially that get a little nervous about that commitment. I'm kind of a solar supporter, life, and I'm not going anywhere, so I wouldn't mind. And I have that commitment where I wouldn't have a problem taking that chance in my house. I think that's one of the things that you probably, I'm not preaching to the choir here, I'm sure that's one of your things. But my side question is, have you approached the school board about the schools?
We haven't.
Because we at the, we have two sets. I just was wondering if you did that or not with the school board, but I would highly recommend you do that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question with regard to the life of the panels and the disposition after the life.
Mm-hmm. So, that's a very common question. So the panels are there's a warranty of 25 years of production. The production drops slightly each year, but at year 25, they're usually still producing at least 80% of what they did, saying at least 80% of what they did from day one. So they're warranted for 25 years. Most panels from reputable installers. They can last longer. Right now, there's not a great infrastructure for panel recycling, but that's something that it's coming up, and there's a lot of work being done around panel recycling because of the components of it. You can't just throw it in the trash.
Right.
Of the components of it, you can't just throw it in the trash.
Right.
So that is an issue. Things like solar panel recycling yards are coming up. It's not a common thing yet, but by the time these panels that are starting to be installed now meet the end of their life, there's going to be a system in place.
Okay.
There should be.
Okay, thank you.
If my memory serves me right, I looked into solar panels about 5 years ago, and I thought there were panels about 5 years ago, and I thought there was no chance of my surviving long enough to get a return on that investment, given my house in my neighborhood, in the way my house faces. I understand things have changed. The way my house faces. I understand things have changed. The panels are becoming more efficient. There's probably better sighting now than there used to be. But there was also this question about either the state or someone saying that you were going to be charged by the utility for hooking up to your city or the local network. Where does that stand?
So, right, We Energy is the service provider, and make it difficult to.
Why aren't they a partner of this?
Well, it's distributed power. They like to have control over of all power that's generated. So this is distributed, owned by the customer. So, but that didn't work. I mean, there are permits. The installer takes care of that, and that is built into the pricing of the systems. A few other things. So yes, the panels are continually getting more efficient. So the payback time is getting smaller, is getting lower, especially also. And another thing I didn't mention, there's focus on energy money specifically for Wisconsin residents. It's $500 for residential systems, and it should be the same next year in 2023 as well. And then in 2023 as well. And then the typical payback period that we're seeing now from our programs is about 10 to 12 years in Milwaukee. So whereas even 5 years ago, it might have been closer to 20 years. And then it might have been closer to 20 years. And then one final point that I didn't mention is there are also a lot more studies coming out recently about impacts of solar and home values and resale values. And I don't have any Wisconsin-specific studies, but there have been studies on the West Coast and the East Coast that I've read recently that show that homes with solar are selling faster than equivalent homes that don't have solar on them. Transferring difficult, so it's becoming easier to do that. So there's less of a burden and a challenge when reselling. And another study from the Berkeley National Laboratories found that homes with solar are also selling for more than homes without solar equivalent. By wherever you are, how much of a difference that is. But it's becoming easier to get solar. The payback is getting smaller, and it's becoming easier to make that transfer should you need to sell your house.
Group process, if the city decides it wants to be advocating, which is really what we're going to be doing more than anything. I mean, how many residents have to participate in something like this to make it work?
Yeah, but
Just
I don't have to.
ballpark.
Yeah.
Ballpark's fine.
Yeah.
at minimum 10,
Oh, well.
which is we always achieve. We're in the 40s and 50s, and I really I think that this year is going to be probably our best year yet, just with rebates to electrify. Plus, so we've got our North Shore partners have locked in again to be with us. So all of the North Shore communities, Whitefish Bay, Shorewood, Bayview.
They moved Bayview on us.
Yes, Bayview is also a partner. The city of Milwaukee. We are this close to getting confirmation of West Dallas and Wauwatosa as well. So really kind of bringing in past years, I think is really going to make our program a success.
I mean, I realize it's almost impossible to say what it's going to cost per resident because the homes are so different.
Mm-hmm.
But what kind of what kind of commitment is a typical colonial, let's say, like mine, going to have to make in terms of outlay to start to earn all these tax credits and
Sure.
wonderful benefits.
So in more condensed housing areas, the system sizes are going to be a little bit smaller, more like 5.5 to 6 kilowatts. 5.5 to 6 kilowatts. Slightly larger, you're going to see 7 to 8 to 10 kilowatt sizes. The average in our Milwaukee programs is 7.3 something kilowatts. And the average payback, or the average price in kilowatts, and the average payback, or the average price is between $22,000 and $25,000. So that's your starting price, but that's not including the 30% tax rebate, which you have to have a tax appetite, or no, you actually don't. Which you have to have a tax appetite, or no, you actually don't. Excuse me, I'm just so used to saying that. The new legislation. Even if you're getting a refund, you can still take advantage of this tax rebate. It's just spread out over. Up to 5 years is how it works. But so regardless of your tax appetite, you can now take advantage. Everyone can now take advantage of this.
I assume you have actual residences that you can share income and expense data on.
Mm-hmm.
The 22,000 doesn't surprise me, but if all I'm getting back is $50 from Wisconsin Electric.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And I mean, when you get a quote from the installer, they will give you a projection of what your panels will be producing annually, and the projected utility payback period in front of you before you're signing your contract. So you can see, I mean, because your solar panels are going to be producing a lot of your energy, whatever you don't produce that you do use, you still will get billed for that. There'll be some months where panels produce more net metering, where it's kind of like rollover minutes on your cell phone when that used to be a thing. So there are some months where the only fee, or the only charge from your utility bill is going to be the operation and maintenance fees that will always be there.
Do you have this at your personal residence?
I don't, because I don't have a site that's suitable for solar, unfortunately. Too many trees around for solar, unfortunately. Too many trees around.
Okay.
Did you have questions, Marion?
I have a couple of just comments for the commission. So the Inspection Services Department did make me aware of some of the tax. The Inspection Services Department did make me aware of some of the tax credit programs that are already affecting the uptake of solar in Franklin. So the last time I checked with them, they had issued more than a dozen permits, and that was a few months ago, without this kind of incentive. So they did say explicitly that they don't want to administer a program, and it sounds like that's not what's being expected. So just in terms of the communications piece of it, my thought would be that if this is something the commission is interested in doing, request the information that you need from MARTA, and then the Common Council would probably, if you have a sample resolution, that would be appropriate. We have a brand package that we would be able to share. And then in terms of communication, there's a couple of different avenues. So this commission is not affiliated with a specific department. Inspection services, they're used to issuing the permits and would probably be happy to answer any questions you have about what local permits are required. And then the utility is totally separate. So.
And also conversely, we like to work with and check in with the planning departments and look at local ordinances and help update. So we've got model ordinances and
Okay, so on that note, this commission is part of the discussion for the update of our Unified Development Ordinance, which is currently in process. The current ordinance will be in place next year and does not regulate solar. It will be in place next year and does not regulate solar at any level, with the exception of some standards related to the design and the how high it can be and those kinds of things.
Okay.
So there's no regulatory barrier locally beyond whatever the electrical permitting would. So there's no regulatory barrier locally beyond whatever the electrical permitting would be. On commercial properties, it would be if commercial partners get involved, then there's site plan approval. We could do that a couple different ways. There will be standards going forward, and that's obviously a place where the commission can have input. But at present, it's literally just the zoning. So it can't be taller than what's allowed in the neighborhood, basically. So, yeah.
So it's the homeowner that's doing financing,
correct.
that MRE doesn't have any
No.
part of that?
We have a lot of financing partners. One being the Clean Energy Credit Union, which is a nonprofit lending member-based that we're a member of, so kind of by way of participating in the program, anyone. Their rates, there are a lot of green lending and green financers that are kind of around and more cropping up because of this IRA legislation. One of the components of it is to make financing for renewable projects easier and more. Also, like to go to our local banks in the areas and see if they have any programs, any loan programs for renewable energy projects, and connect them with resources if they'd like to try to build something into that. So we have options.
Okay. And We Energies has an existing rate, buyback rate, that customers would,
Yes, it's minimal. So the rate that they pay customers, is drastically different.
but there's something that's in place. It doesn't have to get developed. It's already an existing approved
Yep,
rate.
it's already there. It's called net metering, and I think that if they're charging 11 cents per kilowatt hour, I think they pay back like 2 or 3 to you. So that's why sometimes people think like, oh, I'll just get a giant solar system on my house and I'll produce 150% of the electricity that I need and I'll get money back from the utility. Well, by way of the system that the utilities have designed.
And do you have any comments, pros, cons, compare, contrast with if someone is interested in solar, going with the existing We Energies programs versus doing the install on their own properties?
The programs that We Energies has are not the same as owning solar on your house. So those are good solar on your house. So those are good for folks kind of like me who don't have the ability to go solar on their own property, like buying into like a solar garden or community solar garden, which means like, okay, even though I don't have it on my roof, somewhere else is generating solar. On my roof, somewhere else is generating solar, and I'm kind of paying for that on the system in the greater whole. So, it's really night and day. Owning your own solar panels, the benefits far outweigh not owning your panels if you have the ability to do so compared to the other programs that We Energies offers. I hope that answers your question. I think I kind of danced around a little bit, but also another thing that I'll mention is that we are constantly working to find ways to get solar to folks who solar is just out of reach for them. Solar is just out of reach for them financially. So with the IRA, there are a lot of upfront, they're not rebates, they're just upfront incentives that folks can get to start to electrify their house and do upgrades, energy efficiency upgrades, so they don't have to pay out of pocket for these things. And we find that sometimes the barrier to solar is not just, I can't just put it up here, but I have to make these improvements to my house, and it's a lot, it's a lot of large projects all at once on the track to electrification easier. So, that being said, we like to try to help folks, bridge that gap, and make it easy and so they can see a path to solar.
Batteries or storage components for these
Yep.
projects?
Yes, definitely. The installers that we work with also install batteries. They design systems to include batteries now or in the future. That's something we tell folks, if it's something you're thinking of, just make it battery ready. So it's an easy switch down the road or an easy addition down the road. It's something that's very common.
Okay. And then as far as a timing, you've already got existing partners. I doubt that a decision would be made by January coming out of here. I mean, it just wouldn't be feasible.
Sure.
Is it that you like to have your municipalities on board, say January, or if something happens in July, board, say January, or if something happens in July,
The sooner rather than later.
that you
right?
like to start things, say, in January or February? Is that kind of how
Yes.
your process
Yeah,
works?
yeah.
So
We
if it
like-
takes us a year,
Then,
that'd be like the
then we'd
next
have you on
round.
board for one of,
That'd be like the
then we'd
next
have you on
round.
board for one of our next programs if it were to take that long. And it has for some communities. I think it took 2.5 years to get Lake County and Chicago to join our Chicagoland program. Or, you know, it takes time to work its way through committees, but, yeah, any way to help make that, you know, we're happy to have you if you can join in July, if you can't join, in January or February. This program is not gonna be, residents are not paid whether we have the city of Franklin's support or not, just because they are residents of the greater Milwaukee area. So we would just like your support, basically, you know, so that your residents can know that you know about the program. Exactly.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, and I took a lot of your time today, so I appreciate it. Hold on a second here, let me give you, maybe I can just leave these with you, Mary.
Yep.
Graham, and then these are just a few flyers if you'd like to share it with any of your colleagues and pass it around. I can provide digital copies as well.
I think you guys have this in your packet, but I'll pass them around.
And, yeah, my contact information is on there if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Sure, one second. Does the commission want to take any action right now, or? Would you like to refer?
You said without a resolution, or otherwise?
I
guess-
don't have one available, and it
Yeah.
sounds like Marta can provide a sample. I'm sure our city attorney will want to review it in depth.
It's a page long, but yeah.
And is there any do you have any sense of what the Common Council's opinion of
Well,
participation would be?
I guess this is in its infancy stage as far as what we
Yeah.
heard tonight and where this would go. And my 2 cents on this is I think, just like Marion said, I think I'd like to see something over here. I think, just like Marion said, I think I'd like to see something over here referred to the city attorney before we do anything. And then perhaps they'd come back to this commission, and this commission could review it and then make recommendations to the Common Council.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
It's a process, as you're well aware.
My wife is the city attorney for West Dallas, so I'm very familiar with this.
Right, it is a process. It is growing in popularity. It's just like the gentleman was mentioning before, in popularity. It's just like the gentleman was mentioning before, is it feasible, is it cost effective? I mean, all these things are gonna have to be vetted, and in my opinion, before this commission makes any sort of recommendation to the council, we've gotta have everything in a row.
Yeah, that makes me think that, so if you want to refer the item to council with the information that's been presented, then I can follow up with Marta to make sure that they get what you've gotten in your packets, and maybe, you know, if they refer it back here for more direction, I can communicate that on down, so it's up to the commission. Now, let me grab the drive though.
Unnecessarily complicated. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I guess at this point, if we would send something up, it'd basically just be for their information.
They're interested in pursuing it because this commission isn't empowered to enter into a partnership like that, so the resolution would be necessary, and then staff can distribute the brand package and depending on how we decide to handle communications, if the commission wanted or do outreach to other organizations, we can talk about what that looks like. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
okay.
All right,
Moving on.
Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
thanks.
To do, send it up to council, or
I thought we were going to get, before it goes to council, because there's going to be 10,000 questions. Do you feel, as a commission, do we
Like
feel
if
that it should go, wait till she gets her example resolution, then we ask the city attorney for a review?
you could put forward what's been presented so far, and then if they want to pursue it, come back with a resolution, or we could put it forward with a resolution attached. That's really,
I,
If they've got any interest
yeah, if there's any appetite
in
for it.
being a
All the
supportive.
all the information is just so vague right now. They'll evolve into, I mean, I'd certainly like a sense of whether or not the city's common council would like to pursue a relationship with, a solar,
Which is like-
relationship with, a solar.
but just like you said, it's vague.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the Madam
But what-
Chair was talking about something, I'm not sure the point you were going to make, but,
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, I guess it's just the FYI, this is out there, if the city of, FYI, this is out there, if the city of Franklin has a desire, has an interest in supporting solar, we could look further into it. We could look further into it.
I think she brought up a point when I asked her, do you have it at your house? And she's like, well, no, there's too many trees around.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of reasons why you can't have it, but one of the vague points you bring up is, okay, what are costs? What are some of the obstructions? I mean, I have an east-west points you bring up is, okay, what are costs? What are some of the obstructions? I mean, I have an east-west peak tell, so that's perfect for me. I'm like the poster child,
Yep.
but a lot of people aren't.
I mean, I think a lot of it is site specific, and that's something that the informational sessions can help people to figure out on a homeowner by homeowner basis. We're not We're not in a position to do an analysis for the entire
No.
city of what's
No,
the
no, no,
solar
no.
uptake potential for the whole city. So my understanding of what's been presented is that it's essentially like a brand partnership, if that makes sense, that this is essentially like a brand partnership, if that makes sense, that the city is endorsing this program.
And that's dangerous.
It is, which is why we would need common council review and approval. So I think that Marta, if she wanted to make a presentation, that might be appropriate, but I agree with you that a draft resolution might be useful. And then this presentation asked the core question that I had, what is the administrative burden to the city? It sounds like it's nominal, not significant, but the permitting in the due course, unless it was 1,000 permits, they didn't think it would be not possible. So it's really just a question of, does the city want to endorse the program?
Yeah, she did say dedicating some amount of staff time. I don't want that.
Yeah, and that could potentially mean me or another planner, people from inspection services providing feedback back on the permitting process. I'm sure there's lots of different ways that could look. But yeah.
And the communications part of it, to the extent.
Yeah, we
Some
don't have
type.
a significant social media presence or a communications department that's dedicated newsletter or through the existing channels that are the Facebook pages and the city website.
So no need to do anything.
If you want to refer it up to council for feedback, you could take a motion to that effect, or you could direct me to request a resolution come back with it at the next meeting for you guys to look at before we do that.
That's what I like, Madam Chair.
Have a resolution,
Come back to
Going up.
us.
Okay,
I like, Madam Chair.
have a resolution.
Come back to
Going up.
us.
okay.
Okay.
So what do I do?
All right.
When you mentioned packet earlier, I didn't get a packet.
We email them only. We don't send a paper packet.
That's why it got weird.
Did it not make it through on the email we sent it to you?
I thought it was still the paper, but you're right. I think that was brought up last meeting, so that's my fault.
Yeah, this commission took a resolution in 2019
Yes.
that they only do electronic.
Okay. That's my fault then.
Yep, so, well, no, it's, now you know. But if you do want a paper packet, I can leave it in your box for you.
Am I hearing this right? You emailed a packet?
Planning
Last
commission.
week, Gail Olson, for
I didn't
the
get
meeting
one.
materials.
And
I
the
only,
pictures that you sent.
I saw the agenda on the
Right.
city's website. It's not
So all
the
of them-
first time.
This, all these.
Yeah, the
well,
pictures, of which like 13 of it was the solar stuff.
Yeah.
Do I need to document anything?
Not, if you're not taking a motion, then you can
Alright.
just put discussion only. Thank you.
All right. We'll bounce back to business. Articles for City of Franklin newsletter. I don't know if we know the dates for next year at all for the newsletters. This last year, I think it was mid-January. For delivery in February. And then the next newsletter was mid-April for delivery later on in May.
So the schedule was revised to only send quarterly, and I don't think I've gotten an updated schedule of deadlines, so.
Okay.
Um,
But if
and
it's kind of sort of similar, we'd need to get the Arbor Day. We'd need to get the Arbor Day stuff in the January.
Yeah, I think it's too late if we wait for the later one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That would have to be modified slightly, but
so good timing.
I thought so.
I thought it was kind of early, but nope. It's right on,
Thank you, Commissioner. So is this what you want to send forward as the newsletter item?
Well, I mean, if you want to format it differently or something, I'll be happy to try to do that, but, I mean, it's the next kind of action event.
And I know, I'm realizing that we didn't look at this piece of the calendar, but I know Lisa will ask me about the date of Arbor Day and want to include that information with this. So,
Well, yeah.
and that's usually set by the council, right?
the Saturday.
Yeah,
closest
usually
to
the
it.
first Saturday of May. Arbor Day is on my calendar.
Friday, April 28th.
So then probably May 6th. For our tree giveaway, tree shrub. Right, that would be the next.
May 6th. Yeah. Well, it'd be, so there's Saturday the 29th.
29th.
You guys are on Saturday, right?
May 6th, yes.
Yeah, so the 29th through the 6th. I have not checked with the city forester about it either, to be honest. So, but he'll probably come forward with a tree list at your next.
Are you going to be in contact with him?
I can be if you.
Well, I
need information.
think at the last Arbor Day event, there was discussion that people wanted more shrubs and if possible, actual flowers, but I don't know how far we want to go with that, but I'm for shrubs
Yes.
versus pine trees.
Yep. Okay, I can communicate that. So let me put it this way. Is the commission comfortable with including a save the date that is based on whatever DPW wants to do? That is based on whatever DPW wants to do? Okay.
I am.
Yeah, and perhaps we'd know more by January, or whenever the deadline is,
Yeah.
whenever the deadline is.
Yeah.
Do I need to document anything?
Anything else for article? Anything else for articles?
No.
Okay. Item B, Common Council referral of no mow May for research and recommendation back to the Common
I
Council.
have made a recommendation. Unfortunately, I have not had time to put forward that recommendation back to Common Council.
Table it till next meeting? Is that what you're looking for? I'll make that motion to table till next meeting.
Item C, Unified Development Ordinance Task Force. Is there any update,
So,
progress with that?
yeah, the commission,
Get back in September.
Commissioner Gorak and Commissioner Sharma are the representatives from this commission. The UDO task force met, I'm trying to remember what the date of that was. Was it the 5th?
It was,
Do you remember?
yeah, the first day
It was not the 5th, it was before Thanksgiving. wasn't
before
it?
Thanksgiving, right?
Uh,
The week of.
November 7th. So at that meeting, they reviewed proposed articles 4 and 5, which are design standards. There was a significant public comment, especially around participation and a few other things. And then Commissioner Sharma attended the meeting phase, and those will be circulated once they're ready, but we're kind of in a slow moment because of the holidays, so that will start happening again after the holidays. So the Common Council also requested that they receive an update at the Committee of the Whole in February, so that's they'll be receiving an update on the status of the whole project, and I do encourage the Commission to attend because that's going to give you a good overview of where things are now. That meeting will be, I think it's February 6th. Will there be cake?
One cupcake for
Sounds good. Yeah, so, and the next phase will include the natural resource protection standards. So at the moment, there has been a review of a draft floodplain ordinance. It's basically a draft floodplain ordinance. It's basically pretty similar to what the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, their new model ordinance will look like. And then that's going to come back as part of the natural resource protection standards. So if you guys have comment protection standards, so if you guys have comments that you want to send forward, or you want to discuss any items now, or you want more information from me, please let me know. I haven't shown this commission the drafts to date, but my intention is to, once the task force has reviewed the natural resource protection standards, the commissioners that are on the task force are receiving that information, but this body should also get an opportunity to review and comment. So,
Will that by any chance include the section of the ordinance that involve noise abatement?
So currently, the Unified Development Ordinance does not include significant standards related to noise. They're part of the municipal code. So the design ordinance is it's a section of the municipal code, and the noise standards are all in development districts that have noise standards. They're not administered by planning directly. They're administered as part of like the complaint and nuisance process. So there has been a request to discuss them as part of the design ordinance, and I've been informed that that is actually a common practice. I mean, we'd also have to amend the municipal code. That's something we expect to be doing in a couple of different ways, and have already started to do, because the sign code is currently part of the municipal code, even though it's typically part of a design ordinance. So that is an option, but it was not part of the scope of the original request proposing. So if this commission wants to discuss or make recommendations around that, I would have to get more information about what that would look like. Yeah.
Same with the light too, I'm assuming.
Lighting standards are part of the design ordinance. So there are minimum requirements related to foot candle, ordinance. So there are minimum requirements related to foot candle, but this is strictly for commercial design.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what's called foot candles, the measurement of how much light there is at the ground, and how far that can travel outside of a property line. So it's regulated through the design or property line. So it's regulated through the design ordinance. There are requirements related to the directionality of light and the amount of light, basically. So through the site plan review process, we require a lighting plan from any commercial development that's going to have lighting that would potentially impact commercial development that's going to have lighting that would potentially impact neighbors, or if we think that that's necessary, it's typically required. The standards vary based on the type of fixture, but they're roughly that you cannot have light that encroaches onto other properties.
Unless you're a baseball stadium, apparently.
The Ballpark Commons is a planned development district with, I am not the planner that administers it. I am not familiar with the ordinance, and I know that it is very different from other pieces. It's different. And it will also, that ordinance is not part of the UDO rewrite. So just to be clear, Ballpark Commons is a planned development district. We are not rewriting those as part of this process. So some of the underlying standards might change. So if it's referring back out to a separate piece of code, like the sign code might change, but this project does not address any of the 39 PDDs in the city. So.
Can we reopen the discussion with this lady who spoke at the beginning? Dina, I believe. I'm sorry, I forgot your last name.
You've got questions or?
Well, where exactly do you live again, ma'am?
Do you need to suspend the rules or anything, or?
Sure, you can, if you want to come to the table, that's.
Sure, that'd be great. Excellent.
Sure, you can, if you want to come to the table, that's.
Sure, that'd be great. Excellent.
And I'll make a motion to suspend the rules along.
Thank you. Second.
Is this on, or?
All in favor?
22.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
It should be on.
Is it on? It doesn't sound like it.
It should be on.
Is it on? It doesn't sound like it.
The desk mics are.
I just grabbed that one.
Okay. Dave again, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. I truly appreciate you allowing me to speak again. Regarding the lighting, I appreciate you bringing that up, but actually there was mitigation done regarding the lighting. So they did do a photometric plan, and the county required that it not have foot candles crossing into the surrounding areas. So that has improved substantially. But they disagree with the planner here that she said that the UDO does not cover noise standards. There's a section 15-31107 that actually has a whole... Sure, 15-31107 that has an entire table of each individual zoning district, hours of operation, and maximum decibel level. In the report, November 23rd, 2020, indicated that the decibel level allowed in my residential neighborhood is significantly higher than any other residential neighborhood in the city of Franklin. Significantly. And it states right in his report, I could be happy to give you a copy, it says that line, and that is what the decibel level maximum should be, is the property line, which is 50 decibels. The stadium itself could be operating at 79, 80, 90 decibels. It doesn't matter. But once it crosses into a different zoning district, it needs to be following that zoning district. Otherwise, you'll just have, what's going on now is that, so you might as well not have an ordinance. What's the point of having a residential zoning ordinance? Yes.
Was that report, can I turn off one of my
Sure.
Was that report done by ED?
Yes. That is
You said November of 21?
23rd, no, it's November 23rd, 2020 was the date of.
November of 2020 is when he submitted that report.
Yeah, and then there was a report at the Milwaukee County started doing a research and doing an analysis. They're actually doing a comprehensive sound study right now for this development because the approval of this development in 2016 required a comprehensive sound study. And I know the planner said that that's how they're going to address this year when that was a requirement on the comprehensive sound study, which was just simply removed by the city. They said that the noise is being mitigated, which is completely false. Obviously, if you look at the number of police complaints, online complaints, emails, I mean, we call the aldermen and other elected officials about how much noise is crossing into our neighborhood to the point that you can't sleep, you can't enjoy your property. People have come to meetings and say it's like being tortured. They hide in their basement. Kids can't sleep, and it impacts everything. It's totally unacceptable. So I would truly appreciate if there's some sort of standards. It's totally unacceptable. So I would truly appreciate if there's some sort of standards established that there's a noise, in that section, I think 15-3107 has a quiet, I think it's noise sensitive area or something like that. So this property abuts Mankin Woods and Whitnall Park. So area or something like that. So this property abuts Mankin Woods and Whitnall Park. So if you designate that property line, it would help address some of the noise, at least not into the park area. And then that also should be, I mean, I assume that residential neighborhoods should be quiet. It should not have to be designated. I assume that residential neighborhoods should be quiet. It should not have to be designated as a quiet area. You should know that in your home, you can enjoy I can't even have a conversation with my husband in my home with the windows open. We have to literally yell at each other. We have to turn up the TV. I live a half mile, 700 feet from the stadium. 700 feet.
Whereabouts are you again?
I live closer to the golf course than I do the Rock. Okay? So I live closer to the golf course than I do the stadium.
Are you north or south of Rawson?
I am north of Rawson. The whole Hawthorne neighborhood is north of Rawson. Yes. We come to, I mean, we've been coming to meetings for 9 years, literally. And we're tired of complaining. We're ignored. And it's totally unacceptable that, I know there's some PDD standards. If the PDD standards are in complete contrast and contradict all ordinance, that should be completely unacceptable. I understand PDDs are established to give some flexibility on development, but that's a complete difference than saying, oh, but it's a special district, so now we can broadcast noise for hours into your neighborhood just because it's special. And we don't have to follow all the rules that all the other developers. Problem about that it's outrageous what has been happening for 9 years. There's 120 events this year, broadcasting noise for 4 to 6 hours a day. Many of them go past 10:30 at night, even during the week. There's live music. There's stadium events, the baseball, and we all know how. And it's not, I know the technique that the developer uses, and that my neighborhood is trying to shut it down and make it go away. John Nelson has been at, I'm sure, many meetings with me. I have never said that. I don't think any neighbor has ever said that. That's the technique they use to outrage the people that do go to the place and try to get them to say, oh, my gosh, bankrupt the city because you put so much money into this project. So that's just a technique, and it's outrageous that that's what we're we're labeled as NIMBYs and all these other things. I was in my home for 10 years prior to that project being built. I've been in my home for 20 years. You're scaring neighbors out of my neighborhood. It's a, and I would really appreciate it if you guys can address this in some way, because it's pretty clear that whatever avenue that's been pursued so far has totally been ignored. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy. I have a lot of information, as John knows. So.
I live on South 74th, on the 7500 block, and I'm in the habit of enjoying my backyard in the evenings. And as you say, it's becoming increasingly difficult to do so when the event care what time it is. I don't understand why the city seems to be so reluctant to hold the management of that place responsible for torning it down if they can't. But
and in addition, there's actually speakers that are pointed at our neighborhood, and they have been. And even Mayor Olson pointed that out in 2020, that there's speakers pointed out from the stadium. What is the purpose of pointing speakers out from the neighborhood other than to be punitive? The people in the stadium want to enjoy all the activities and things like that. So, enjoy all the activities and things like that. So.
Okay, does that give you information you were looking for?
yeah, I would like to hear some kind of a response from the city about how it is, some kind of a response from the city about how it is or is not enforcing both the noise and lighting restrictions on that property. I think it's unfair to our residents, it's unfair to the neighbors in the east side, unfair to our residents, it's unfair to the neighbors in the east side of 76th Street that abut the crazy parties. And as I said, I live almost a mile south, and I can hear it, and it is quite disturbing. I won't get into the issue of traffic or speeding or other noise that's associated with this property, but I mean, whatever it's bringing to the city, I would like to know what it is, other than I'm not seeing it. They're certainly not paying taxes.
Right, they're fighting their assessments. They do every year, and and then when this project was approved, after it was approved, then they applied for a stadium tax exemption. So, I mean, I think that they're, as far as being a good neighbor and being transparent all along. I mean, I have documents that said that there would be no audible decibels heard. Mayor Olson even testified in 2020, I think it was May, that we'd be out of our mind if we thought we heard noise from the movie theaters. The movie theaters played movies, broadcast the movies for 90 days that I could hear profanity in my house past midnight. And that is what the city has been allowing, and it's outrageous. The movies are much better. They are all AM and FM, which is what was presented at the May meeting. And by the way, that he submitted he was advertising, which is true, what's the Enchanted Forest or something like that. That's an unpermitted event, unpermitted 11-day event. It didn't go through licensing. It didn't go through the Common Council, and that's very common for this development, that it does whatever it wants and there's no citations, no violations, no, you can't do that, restricting any other permits. It's just commonplace, and it needs to stop. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
As far as an action, is there anything that
I'm sorry?
we need to document?
Is there more information as relates to the UDO rewrite and sound and lighting? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I'm hearing whether or not there are sections of the UDO
Okay.
specifically on noise levels and.
Well, whether we're revising the UDO or not revising the UDO, I'll look into noise and lighting situation with our current ordinances. And I would like this item on our agenda at our next meeting for further discussion.
Separate from the UDO, or?
Yes, separate from the UDO.
Sure,
What are they?
sure.
What are they? What are they not?
I just hear my thing.
Thank you.
I'll speak loud. There we go. So, just so I can get some clarification that the two people that are representatives from this commission for the UDO are not here tonight.
I'm here.
Oh, you were here. Okay, good. I wasn't sure who was part of this. All right. And the points that Ms. Gint is bringing up, I mean, it's been brought up many, many times. Resolution, I agree. There's got to be some sort of compromise. I agree. I know that's not on the agenda tonight for discussion, but I think that'll be for next meeting if it's actually put on the agenda, and then that can be brought up as far as that goes. Now, gentleman keeps talking about lighting. I thought lighting was good. I thought you were satisfied and your group was satisfied with.
Steve, I don't live close enough that I'm not impacted by the lights as much as probably Greendale, like you mentioned, on the east side of the property. But from my opinion, the lighting has improved as far as it used to be blinding. I'm sure, I don't know how long you guys lived in, but if you used to drive down 76th Street, you would literally be blinded by all the stadium. She installed visors and tilted the lights. And actually, during those meetings, they said, oh, we're going to do the same thing with the speakers and turn them into the stadium. Well, obviously that's not happened. And that was, 4 or 5 years ago. But the lights have improved, from my opinion, but I don't want to speak for the Greendale or the people that actually their backyard improved, from my opinion, but I don't want to speak for the Greendale or the people that actually their backyards are, abutting this. And as far as natural resources and things like that, it's very concerning me too that behind the homes on Hawthorne that back up to this stadium, there was a 10-foot berm constructed. It's 10 feet tall to this stadium. There was a 10-foot berm constructed. It's 10 feet tall in the property in like Bob Knoll's backyard. It's 10 feet. You go to the other side. The developer has filled it in to being level. He's going to put a parking lot there. So that's not a berm. That's not a buffer. That's not a berm. That's not a buffer. It's a slide on one side. It was meant to help mitigate the noise and lights and stuff like that. He filled it in on the other side. He could believe it. It's level. There is no berm on that side. So you guys should go look at that. That's just commonplace. I'm just giving you as another example.
Good.
I could.
I happen to go to the Y that's located over there, and I've noticed last summer, the rather strange pile of dirt that was dumped west. Understood what the intent was there.
Right, and I actually heard, so I had neighbors tell me that there was trucks coming in from off property. I believe most of that was from the excavation of the Lux development, but I also heard from neighbors that trucks were coming from off-site and dumping dirt on there. And I actually climbed to the top of that dirt hill. I was higher than Bob Knoll's house in the air. It was 120 feet wide, 60 feet deep, and 35 feet tall. And that is what they spread out to raise the ground. I believe it's being paved. I don't know. I really don't know what the plans are for that development, but it certainly looks like it's going to be a parking lot. So that will help bounce the sound into our neighborhood even more. But yes, and if you go to the Y, you can see the giant berm along that access drive. Mm-hmm. That's what was continuous. But if you drive back to that corner towards my neighborhood, that's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore.
No, this big berm is great, but that's the noise for those homes are being blocked by the big pole barn. So the noise for those homes are being blocked by the big pole barn. So
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Anything else on the UDO? All right. Item. All right. Item. Item D, funding for environmental commission activities.
So I passed out a copy of the recommended budget that the request that you made in this year's budget cycle. So this request was included as a request under marketing, essentially, as a line. So, and then the mayor's recommended budget included a $2,800 amount. So I have to get clarity as to whether that amount was included in the final adopted budget. I'm going to be asking that question tomorrow when I have a chance. I gave you this copy so that you can have a discussion. These are your funds. So some of the items that are here were related to department costs around administering this commission and also allowing you to do more printing if you desire. So just quickly, when you're in the budget, if you are not purchasing tablets, that means that there would be a $764 shortfall. If you did want to purchase tablets, like the grand total request that you made was for $4,003, so it would be $1,203 shortfall. So the thought that I had here, and this is it's up to you how you spend these dollars down, but you had prioritized some of these items, and the low priority was the native habitat restoration program. That project was rated as a low priority, and it's about almost $1,000. So I think it would be appropriate for you guys to reflect on this, and when I know exactly how much money you have for next year, we can then get you moving on actually spending some of it, getting you t-shirts and that kind of we can then get you moving on actually spending some of it, getting you t-shirts and that kind of thing. But as you know, the Arbor Day, the tree part, it's DPW's funding, so then this is your marketing material around that. So my hope is that it was that full $2,800 amount. I don't see where it wouldn't have been, but I don't have confirmation on that yet. So that's where you are. But you will be able to purchase t-shirts and seeds. So,
No tablets, t-shirts.
Yep, and those reimbursements can be through the planning department. So it will be
I know most of the items under program where it came to garden seed packets and site clearing were on the assumption that we would select a city-owned site. I have no objections, to eliminating all three of those items. It kind of duplicates what we are already doing, both at the Night Out event and Arbor Day with residents. I think that is of more value in terms of, we can naturalize our yards without spending almost $1,000 to create one city-owned garden. So I have no objection to those items being removed at all. I don't particularly see the need for another t-shirt in my closet. And really see the need for another t-shirt in my closet. And well, I'm not sure what I want a laptop device for or tablet device for. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and the tablets, I think we can revisit that because you do not receive a paper. Yeah, and the tablets, I think we can revisit that because you do not receive a paper packet. That was a recommendation so that you don't have to use your personal devices to review the materials. That's another area where you can recoup some of the shortfall. So if you wanted to recoup some of the shortfall, so if you wanted to, it depends on how you want to prioritize this.
All right, but so we should know by our January meeting if.
Yep. At that point, I will be able to share with you the exact dollar amount that you have at your disposal, like proactively delete some things to allow for other things we can talk about.
But you think it will be in the neighborhood of $2,800?
Correct.
Wow, that's bad.
I will reiterate that I appreciate the commission's, recognize by supporting your events. So, that's all for me on this. All right. Any update from the Buckthorn Subcommittee?
Well, Commissioner Jamie actually was kind of leading that. I don't know if the alderman saw these pictures, but it's kind of related to Buckthorn and what we are trying to do. I was invited to Franklin Public Schools this fall, where the staff from Ware Nature Center organized a educational program for third graders, which kind of surprised me at the young age. Grade schools. Each school had approximately 100 students involved. I had about 20 students from each school involved, and I was totally impressed with the pulling invasive species from their property and using a weed wrench that was almost as heavy as they are. But in talking with the staff at Ware Nature Center, they told me that the city, the Franklin Public Schools is asked, probably will have more classes involved. But I'm going to be joining them again, I have no doubt. But after seeing the program, it suggested a rather simple way. It suggested a rather simple way to create a program for teaching adults how to deal with buckthorn or other invasives. And the folks at Ware are interested in pursuing it. If we have an interest in, if we have an interest in collaborating with them. If we don't, I'm sure there'll be enough invitations for them to wear me out on a regular basis, given what these students did. And, given what these students did. And, if we want to hold events to educate our property owners on not only what an invasive species is, and how to recognize them, and perhaps how to remove them without poisoning everything in 5 feet. This is an option that's already been created. It wouldn't take much to, encourage them to collaborate with the city on either a demonstration properties that need some help, and I'll certainly be willing to work with the folks at Ware in putting something a little more formal together for adults. I think it was well received. I liked the way they, kind of went through the process. It's probably a 1 to 2 hour process if we want people to do everything from understand whatever invasives are like, to why it's important that we control them, to how to get rid of them. And we got all kinds of them here, and it's not really that hard. Don't have, an acre of them, but it does take some effort. So I guess at this point, Jamie has not been available. I have not been available for part of the past 2 months. And if you want, I'll be happy to get in touch with her and see if we want to try to work with Ware and come up with something that we can present to the city.
Just a quick question, are you
Present to the city.
Just a quick question, are you dealing with Howard April?
Howard is a very good friend of mine.
Okay, I was wondering, because he's been outstanding.
Oh, God, he is unbelievable.
He does a very good job. And,
Yeah.
see, Country Dale's my alma mater.
Ah,
Spent my 6 years there.
no.
Country Dale's my alma mater.
Ah,
Spent my 6 years there.
no.
I'm surprised you could keep them. And there's a lot of Buckthorn. I live up the road. There's a lot of.
I think Howard unfortunately could not participate in these programs, but we had some parents show up there and some teachers, and I mean it's a fabulous way to teach everybody about what's happening and why it's important to do something about it. But Howard is one of my buddies over there. Yeah. And, many of the things I've learned, he's unbelievable. So I guess at this point, I'll try to contact Jamie and see if she wants to pursue it for, more formally with Ware and
Yeah, I think
report back at the next meeting.
folks on buckthorn and removal was kind of some of our underlying goals.
Right. And buckthorn isn't the only invasive we have that's a serious problem within the community. And, I mean, I've seen it along Ryan, I've seen it along Drexel. The fact that it's not as bad as it is in some other communities gives us hope that we can, control it. Because I've seen it 3 stories tall, buckthorn, in West Dallas, and that place.
So they can't have.
Solar panels, because the buckthorn is too tall. Planner X?
I do have one additional update related to buckthorn. Ken Solis is a volunteer that I believe works with Commissioner Nemec in Grobschmidt Park, and he holds a certification to do pesticide application for buckthorn removal. He approached somewhat positive feedback from them on a potential project in Franklin Woods. So he's putting together a proposal. It'll probably be on their January agenda to do buckthorn removal in Franklin Woods. That site it's a secondary, pretty good quality, like understory still. So the buckthorn is not really bad there. So his goal is to prevent it from encroaching into that beautiful woodland. So I'm happy to keep the commission updated about how that's going as well. But I thought that was a positive development you'd like to know about. That's going as well, but I thought that was a positive development you'd like to know about. So.
Yeah, he had told me he was appearing before the Parks Commission, and he and I work at both Grobschmidt and at Ware on occasion.
Yep.
And I suspect I'll be involved in that as well on occasion.
Yep.
And I suspect I'll be involved in that as well.
Good. I mean, he's clearly very knowledgeable, and I think that
Yeah.
was helpful in
Right.
gathering support for, like, he knows how to do this. Like, so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Jumping item 5, new business. Do we have any future cleanup events on the horizon? Kind of ties in with our last agenda. On the horizon, kind of ties in with our last agenda. Anything to discuss? Nope. Okay. And I'll bounce down to D because it's kind of on the buckthorn. Trend here. This letter that from Thomas Wild or Wildy, not sure how he
Wild.
pronounces Wild. Basically stating that he's been trying to control buckthorn. Near his residence or apartment, and like to call attention. So I don't know if that area would potentially be a project to work on. You didn't see that? That was in the packet.
The packet. Scepter?
The Ernie Lake Park,
Yeah, he's adjacent to Ernie Lake Park.
which need to applaud him for taking on that. He's also, the letter also went to the Parks Commission too. So potentially another area to spotlight if we're gonna, any projects or events for educating and clean out. There's interest in cleaning things up, keeping Buckthorn cleaned out in that area. All right, back to item B, stormwater outfall issue where Nature Center.
Do you have an update on that? I believe they did commence work in September with more information. So,
Alderman, have you heard anything about this issue?
there's a stormwater outfall that comes out of, I'm going to not accurately remember which department development, and flows, you remember which department development, and flows into where Nature Center and the outfall itself collapsed. So the city was working with that development to repair it so that it wasn't, it's been causing erosion problems. So
Now that you mentioned,
causing erosion problems. So
now that you mentioned it, I believe
Yeah.
it was a city and county agreement, because it's obviously county land at Ware Nature Center.
correct.
And I do believe there was some, I don't know, in fact, I recall something.
Yeah, so the Common Council approved, I think, some funding.
Yeah, we approved,
Yeah, so the Common Council approved, I think, some funding.
yeah, we approved some money because it was a city-county partnership to get it done.
But I don't know the status of the work, and that is.
If it got completed or.
I was approached by one of the Weir staff members, saying the agreement with the county didn't quite go as well as the city may have wanted. So but he couldn't tell me more, and I was hoping to hear more from the city.
I think engineering would be the key.
Tyler has an,
Tyler?
updated memo that he, when an update has been requested by this commission, he's sent it forward. So if someone's,
Both are solid, Glenn and Tyler.
yep. The deputy city engineer, so.
All right, hopefully we can get that for our January meeting. Dates for 2023, following our, what is it, fourth Wednesday of the month? That list was in the packet.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's make an exception here. I mean, obviously these dates are not cut and let's be a little flexible for our aldermen here.
So what are you thinking about January? What date is that?
25th.
January 25th?
And the benefit of you guys doing this now is, because you do change some of your dates, like consolidate this once you've approved a list. So it would be great to be flexible to make sure that we have quorum.
Yeah.
But you're good with January 25th, we're all,
That's the current regular meeting date.
sounds good.
January 25th, February 22nd, Worth, June 28th, July 26th, August 23rd, September 27th, October 25th, and then the November, December combined meeting is scheduled for December 6th.
That's smart.
Yeah, so. Because otherwise it would be Christmas Eve.
So you can mark your calendars up for the whole next year. Do we need a motion on that at all?
You
or-
can choose to approve the list if you want, but the chair is the one that convenes the meeting, so. You do, meeting, so. You do.
All right, that's our list of meetings,
Okay.
unless we move them.
Yeah, until we change it.
That's fine.
All right, and so we've covered D, and we've covered E, so we've covered D, and we've covered E, so next meeting, January 25th, 2023.
Almost. I've given Ms. X a copy of this already, but for months I've been trying to resolve the 2 gardens that we had approved at Arbor Day almost 8 months ago, and this past summer. I could not get the powers that be to grant me the magic key to allow them to be billed for 2 gardens. So the folks at the Garden Center have sent me 2 options for the city to follow. I'm willing to comply with whatever hoops or
So this is this material, okay.
yeah.
Have you talked to Kevin Schluter about this at all? It was gonna come from there.
The last I heard was I was not allowed, which is all the city or all the nursery wanted, so that they could bill you.
That is public information?
Well, that's what I thought, but
So,
either way, it either has to be by an PO
okay,
or by a credit card now. So, and
yeah.
I've given you both names and addresses and emails and phone numbers, and the nursery won't accept anything else.
Yep.
Next spring anyway, and the garden centers didn't have them to offer until a few weeks from now.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, in future, this will be handled, the line of communication will be a little more direct,
Okay.
so. But we'll try to get the current situation resolved, so.
Sounds good.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
So move.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 8:50.